Hi, I'm Amy Wolf with VUCast. It seems like 2008 and now the beginning of 2009 are packed with a lot of business ethical scandals. Everyone's heard about Bernie Madoff, who's accused of swindling billions of dollars from his clients. We just heard this week about the Merrill Lynch fired CEO who was caught spending more than $1 million renovating his office. Then, of course, we have loads of things going on in the banking industry and the subprime mortgage scandal. So it makes us think a lot about the ethics of business and whether business can ever be ethical. Joining us today is John Locks, who's the Centennial Professor of Philosophy, and Bart Victor, the Cal Turner Professor of Moral Leadership. So thank you for joining us and talking to us. I'm going to start with kind of a biggie question. Is ethical capitalism possible?
Well, let me try my hand at that. You've got to view business as one of the most ethical enterprises in the world. Because the function of business is to meet human needs. Human needs is what ethics is all about. And business meets those needs by reference to absolute freedom of contract, which is the affirmation of the choice ability, the choosing ability of human beings. So when you add it all together, you find that business, ideally, is absolutely moral. It's the enterprise of caring for each other.
Wouldn't that be nice if that's the way it was? What do you think about that?
Well, I agree with John's construction on what the role of business ought to be. I also would like to add, as just a practical matter, capitalism is impossible without ethics. That the nature or the problem of creating our economy and working in our economy just simply would not work. And I think a lot of the evidence of what's happening today shows how dangerous it is when we don't take into regard the consequences of our behaviors for others.
So give me some examples of where that is working in business. You know, are there people out there who are being responsible and ethical and good leaders in the business community?
Well, I think the vast majority of people are. A couple of problems we face are the scale of consequence, the amount of damage that people can do is far greater. You take the Bernie Madoff example, and that's really not a question of ethics. The man was a sociopath. But he was able to run a scheme that grew into extraordinary scale because of the technology of the market and the state of the market in our economy.
And people trusted him.
Well, we trust lots of people all the time, and if we didn't trust people all the time, we wouldn't be able to function. But when people violate that trust, and particularly when they do it in clever and effective ways like Bernie Madoff, given the way the global market works and the speed, the volume of transactions, we can do a lot of damage very, very quickly.
So do you think people are more upset about what's going on right now because we're in this economic downturn? Or do you think it's something that's never acceptable to the average American?
Well, it's never acceptable if one hears and reads about it. And normally, the press will note these indiscretions by business people and leave it at that, and people don't see it again and again and again. I mean, there's Madoff, and we haven't yet seen what he's really done. I mean, all of this is in the press, and it's being investigated, and we really haven't seen the details. So the more it's in the press, the more people get upset. Under normal circumstances, it just would not be in the press as much as it's been.
So do you think that business people have been doing these type of things all along and it's just the 24-hour media that's bringing this to our attention? Or do you think it's more acceptable to kind of gray the lines when it comes to ethics?
There are nasty and self-aggrandizing people everywhere. And they do these things, and when we catch them, we punish them. This is what human nature is like. There's not very much you can do about it except to set up safeguards as best we can to make sure that they don't get away with it.
So you teach moral leadership at the Owen Graduate School, and I always find this so interesting. A lot of students go to business school because they want to make money. They want to find a job where they can make a good living. So how do you teach them about the value of ethics and morals in business and tie it with enterprise and making a successful living?
Well, I think, Amy, I think I do a couple of things, or I try to do a couple of things. One of them is that our students do often come to school with a motive for income or for wealth, but that's not their only motive. And to bring those other motives to bear on their choices and to understand how those other motives come to bear on their choices become important too. They also come with the desire to live a good life. They come with a desire to have a family. They come with a desire to contribute. They're not caricatures. They're not simple people.
It's not money only.
And so, but one of the things we don't necessarily do as well as we ought to in our curriculum is to help them understand how those other motives are related to the choices they make as business people, and that's a lot of what we do in business ethics. And then we also try to stimulate their moral imagination. How can business work for more than wealth creation?
And what are some reactions you've gotten from the students with some of the things you've done?
Well, for example, our Business and Poverty program, which is directly focused on engaging students in trying to understand how what they learn and have access to as business people can contribute directly to the alleviation of poverty, involves over a third of our class. And it is all voluntary. It's not part of any of their majors, and they put an extraordinary effort and energy into it.
Mm-hmm. And what's your take on what you're hearing from students, or when you talk to students about, it's always such a broad topic to say being moral or being ethical, but what's your take on that?
Well, I've got 305 students in an ethics class.
Wow.
And it's wonderful that they realize that they need ethics and they need more knowledge. And I'm delighted that Bart was mentioning the moral imagination, because the moral imagination is what this is all about. Mm-hmm. If you have the ability to put yourself in the shoes of people whom you are proposing to defraud, you may just pull back and say, is that the kind of person I want to be? What about the tragedy of people who put their last penny with me and I didn't take good care of it? What bothers me a great deal, and I think the students also, is that a lot of employees, high-level employees, such as the person you referred to, John Thane, at Merrill Lynch, they think that their power is such that the company belongs to them, instead of viewing themselves as employees who are supposed to take the best care of every single dollar of the investors and the people who own the company. Mm-hmm. The self-aggrandizement is what bothers me.
Well, I thought it was really interesting and disappointing during the whole subprime mortgage scandal, because my husband and I had just recently bought a house, and no, we didn't have a subprime mortgage, but I kept on thinking, we entrusted so much into the person who worked on our mortgage, and I started doubting the bank, doubting the people that we work with. How do you help people to gain that trust back, not only with the people they work with one-on-one, but the big companies that we invest in and that we buy from?
Well, I think there are two keys, and frankly, I think they were very well reflected in the new president's inaugural address. I think there are two really critical pieces that we need to reinvigorate in our curriculum, and in our economy. One of them is this notion of responsibility. That we are stewards, we are fiduciaries, we are carriers of the needs and interests of others as well as ourselves, and we have responsibility to that and to take that seriously and understand that. I think a second, and just to reflect on what John was saying, is understanding that we are not entitled to the wealth that we can grab. I think greed is far less a problem in modern capitalism than is this sense of entitlement. And how easily we convince ourselves that we are due so much.
That's right. That is exactly right. We think that, I use the word self-aggrandizement. We think that we're the owners of the world. We're at the top of our ability, of the society in which we live, and so everything that we want, we should be able to get. And I think that's just losing track of our finitude and our limitations and our employers.
And let's hope people use more moral imagination. I love that. Well, Bart Victor and John Locks, thank you so much for joining us, and stay with us for more VUCast interviews. Thank you.